Hey, I'm Jay Kumar, the BassBlaster, and this is your Seafoam Top 5 of the Week in Bass Fishing, Episode 66.
Execute Order 66.
Man, Palpatine needs a pet, some sunshine, a giant cheeseburger, and the thump of the jig bite. Number 1. Who is Tyler Williams? Or we could say, what business does a guy from Maine have going to Watts Bar, Tennessee to win a Bassmaster Open with a jig against some of the best sticks in the South? Is that even possible? Answer, yes. Tyler blasted out of the land of blueberries, lobster, and black flies to win it, fishing a 3/4 ounce greenfish tackle little rubber jig with a Yamamoto flapping hog on it. Now, forward-facing sonar was a big part of his deal, but it sounds like not so much on day 1 of the 3-day tournament because it sounds like his trolling motor wasn't working. He called the jig a good search bait even though he was fishing isolated targets. He said his bite was all about timing and angles. So it sounds like he was using forward-facing sonar to help him figure all those finer details out to get these late summer fish to bite. He did say he crawled the jig the first 2 days, and then on day 3 the fish were suspended, so he was hopping it and dropping it to get them to react. Big congrats to him, and interesting he was using forward-facing sonar even when he was crawling a jig. In other words, he was not using what has been the go-to forward-facing sonar bait, a little swim bait. Which reminds me of number 2. Now last month, a guy named Matt Els won a 2-dayer on Bull Shoals Lake on the Arkansas-Missouri border fishing a football jig. I mean, that's pretty common, winning a tournament with a jig or a football jig on Bull Shoals. It's like going to a pizza place and ordering pizza.
I called the pizza place. I ordered a pizza.
But in this case, he was using that football jig to catch suspended fish in real warm water with forward-facing sonar. I believe it was Garmin Live Scope. He said he'd cast it out and let it fall to the bottom, and then he'd hop it up and reel it right over their heads, and they'd either eat it, or if they didn't, he'd drop it through them to try and trigger a strike. The jig was a 3/4 ounce jewel heavy cover football jig in peanut butter smoke with a Strike King Rage Craw on it. Now Matt was catching smallmouths and Tyler was catching largemouths at Watts Bar. So is this a coincidence that this is happening? The whole jig with forward-facing sonar thing? Or are guys figuring out ways to use forward-facing sonar with things other than jerk baits and small swim baits? I'm going with the latter because bass heads are smart and we're always tinkering, man. By the way, we got this video of what a jig looks like moving and shaking in Tennessee. Love it. Number 3. For our 3rd jig deal, we turn to the one and only Gerald the G-Man Swindle. He's a 2-time Bassmaster Angler of the Year winner, 2004 and 2016, and has 58 top 10 finishes.
Say, that's what I'm talking about.
In other words, he's a dang good fisherman who might just be the best ever at just going fishing, also known as junk fishing. And a key bait for him over these tail-kicking years has been the jig. This week I asked him how he would fish a jig if he was going down a bank that basically had no cover, and he gave 2 scenarios. Now the first was a slow tapering bank, and he said in that case what he likes to do is take an original G-Man ballin' out jig, 1/2 ounce, with a Zoom twin tail grub on the back of it, and slowly wind it, keeping it about 2 or 3 feet off the bottom with the trolling motor on 4. The other scenario he gave was a bluff bank or kind of a shelf drop. In that case, he'd cast out the version 2 version of that ballin' out jig with a Zoom Z-Craw Jr. on the back of it, 3/8 ounce jig, and cast it out there and let it fall straight to the bottom. He said he would just be focused on the fall, just watching his line. So if you just want to throw a jig down basically any bank, there you go. Now, you probably know Gerald's one of the funniest people alive, and there's a lot of funny things I can end this segment with, but I'll go with this line that he had at one classic.
I was watching Brent Ayler up here and I was thinking, man, I'm fixing to get beat by a guy wearing skinny jeans and that's gonna hurt.
No skinny jeans, man. Number 4. Denny Brower. Maybe the best jig fisherman of all time, considering that he had 17 wins, including one classic win, which averaged out to be a little more than 1 win every other year of his career. Amazing. This is what Denny says is the most important thing to keep in mind when you're fishing a jig.
But the biggest factor in jig fishing is always let it fall to the bottom on that slack line. Even if I'm flipping and pitching jigs, as they're falling, it's always unimpeded on a semi-slack line so that I can see exactly what that jig's going to do as it's falling, whether it stops, whether it moves sideways, whether I see that line jump indicating I got a bite. I'm going to set the hook immediately if anything strange happens. And the only way I can tell that if it's falling on that slack line. Plus it allows it to go straight down into the cover.
Slack! Even when you're flipping and pitching in tight. Why should we listen to Denny? Well, I've already said it, but Denny's all,
Because I am the best.
don't forget to watch your line, man. Number 5. So when you're letting your jig fall straight down on a slack line or a semi-slack line, does it fall faster or slower with a bulky trailer versus a flapping craw trailer? I bet I know what you'd say, or what I'd say anyway, but don't answer yet. Check this out first. A guy named Jimmy Lau made this video that compares the two styles of trailers, but before he could even do that, he had to find 2 jigs, the exact same jigs that fell at the same rate. And that was an issue because right out of the package, a bunch of the jigs didn't fall at the same rate. Wow. Anyhow, after he found 2 that sank at the same rate, he tested bulky versus flappy trailers.
When trailers of a similar bulk are matched against each other, what we find is that the flapping action is what causes a slower fall rate.
Amazing, isn't it? I thought the jig with the chunk style trailer would fall slower. And yep, it also matters how buoyant that plastic trailer is, but
Remember, the falling action of a jig is slowed down by the flapping action of the trailer and not by the bulk.
that reminds me that Jason Christie told me this week that the new half-ounce version of the War Eagle Jiu-Jitsu jig is significantly different than the 5/8 ounce version that he fished to win the 2022 Bassmaster Classic. He said it's way different in fall rate and profile, and that's only an 1/8 ounce difference. So when we're talking all that plus different head shapes, different skirt lengths and types, different water temperatures, current, line types, and then add trailers onto that, man, it seems like jig fall rates can be tweaked as much as tacos. I don't know, maybe even more. Man, I love jigs and I love tacos.
Fish tacos, shrimp tacos, or carne asada. When I see a taco truck, you know I gotta follow. Ayy.
That's all I got for you this week. Thanks for watching. Thank you, Seafoam. Go to bassblaster.com or .rocks to sign up for the juicy bass-filled Bass Blaster email. See you next week. God bless you.